Now let's talk about what happens with increased supply versus cell demand when it comes to eating. The more you eat, the more glucose that you put into the bloodstream. This can cause your glucose levels to go above what is considered to be ideal. Now the body, like I said before, works very hard to keep those glucose levels stable. So what it will do when you eat is release something called insulin from the pancreas. And insulin's job is to lower that blood glucose back down to normal as quickly as possible. The more you eat, the more insulin that you release in order to deal with this glucose. Now, insulin has two very important roles. The first one is that insulin is what allows the glucose in the bloodstream to actually enter our brain and muscle cells. So without insulin, you wouldn't be able to have energy in your brain or in your muscles. Now, the second important role that it plays in the body, which is very important to energy management, is that it lowers blood glucose in a very time-efficient manner. In fact, it's going to lower your glucose to normal within 2 hours or less. Now, this becomes very critical because what will happen is that insulin picks up all this glucose from the bloodstream, and in that 2-hour time frame, it has to find a place to put it. So the first place that it goes to is your brain and muscle cells. Who needs glucose? What are you doing? So the amount of glucose that your brain and muscle cells take up in that 2-hour time frame really depends on what you're doing. The more you're doing, the more glucose they take up. The less you're doing, the less glucose they take up. Now, because insulin has this job to do and it has to do it within that 2-hour time frame, it starts to scramble about where it's going to put this extra glucose. So if your brain and muscle cells have already taken what they need, insulin says, hey, I've got to find a place to put all of this extra glucose and I don't have much time left. There is a cell in our bodies that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with an unlimited capacity for glucose uptake. Any guesses on what cell that is? The fat cells. So your fat cells have this very good capacity at just taking up energy and taking up energy. There's no limit. There's no cap. If it's more food than what you need, that's where it goes. Don't worry about running out of space in the fat compartment because you won't. Your body will find a way to get that energy in there. It'll build another roll, another wing, another compartment, wherever it needs to do, it's going to shovel that food into those fat cells. Because the main idea is just to get that glucose out of the bloodstream so that it doesn't cause any damage, which is what can happen in diabetes with high glucose levels. So what happens is that insulin is working very hard to make this happen. What you might find when you overeat is that you feel tired and sleepy and sluggish. Now, food is supposed to give you energy. So why is it that when you eat too much, you feel so low on energy? What happens is the body puts all of its energy actually into lowering this glucose and taking it out of the bloodstream. Your blood supply diverts to the digestive tract and your body is just working hard at saying, hey, we need to lower this glucose. Everybody come help us with this. So what happens in that 2-hour time frame, if you eat too much, is that you feel disengaged. You might just feel like you don't care about things. It's hard to concentrate and focus and it's hard to get things done. Once again, because your body is working so hard to get rid of that extra glucose. And most people will notice that when they eat too much and they feel tired, it lasts a couple of hours. And that's really until the glucose returns to normal. So what becomes really important here from a supply and demand perspective is that you supply the right amount of glucose that matches the demand that you're going to have in the next few hours. So it doesn't matter that you exercised earlier. It doesn't matter that you're going to exercise later in your day. What matters is how much energy your body needs right here, right now, in the next 2 hours. If it is not spent by your cells, it is actually stored away into fat. So we're going to talk a little bit later about really what is the right amount to eat to make sure that you've matched your energy needs for the next couple of hours.